Hi, this is Melanie of Pardesi Reviews, and I'm joined with Kathy of Cinemana Podcast and Amit of D54. We just talked extensively, as non-spoilerly as we could, about this film. Okay, I'm going to murder this. Sorry. Sapta Sagaradaache Ello, Side B. From here on out, I'm just going to call it Side B.
That's fair.
We talked extensively about the first film, Side A, very, starring Rakshit Shetty and starring Rukmini Vasant as Priya, and their tragic love story, and how Rakshit Shetty's character has to go to prison, and it's just like it was a very intense love story and this very sad movie, and ended very abruptly. And when I watched the first film, even though it was called Side A, I did not clue into the fact that this really is a two-part film. And so finally, the second part came out on streaming, and I've just come back from a trip, as some of you know. So we all caught up with Side B, which is on Amazon Prime Video. And we had a spoiler-free discussion, as I said, on Cinemana Podcast. I will link to that above and in the description below. So if you've not seen Side B, stop. Go back, watch the film, and then come back for this extensive discussion, because we're going to get into major spoilers. We're going to talk about the ending. So highly recommend you see the film, because this, I think we all agreed that for me, this, I mean, I know Rakshit Shetty is great. I've seen him in Charlie 777, seen him being zany in his own films.
Mm-hmm.
But the acting that he gives us in this two-part film, directed by Hemant Rao, like, okay, like, it is amazing.
It's so
good. It's essentially a 5-hour film that we think that they probably filmed all at the same time. Although Rakshit Shetty's character looks completely different in the second film, because he's come out of 10 years in prison. Yeah. His face is scarred up. He has a short haircut. He just looks beaten down. Totally beaten down.
That's not good.
And so kind of hinted at how he cannot let go of his love for his fiance. And at the end of the first film, we see that she's getting married, and I was like, what?
I was like, no, you cannot. No, not allowed.
I mean, he forced her. He wouldn't accept her visits at the prison anymore. He wanted her to move on with her life, but then he cannot deal with the fact that she moved on with her life. And when he comes out of prison, this is called Side B, because she had sent him a cassette tape that he listens to obsessively. And when we hear it in this second film, it's all garbled, because it's from him rewinding it millions of times and listening to it over and over and over again. As she describes, when you get out of prison, we're going to do this. And I remember those great days when we visited the beach and all of this. So he spies on her in a very stalkery way. And a lot of it, we've expected this film to be all revenge, action, which we do get. And we're going to talk about that at the ending. But a lot of it is him completely unable to move on with his life. Yeah. And he spies on her and discovers her life ain't so great. 10 years on.
Yeah, and we don't really go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say that's really interesting, because like we don't get to, like, in Side A, like it just sort of tells us that she's married somebody. We don't know who she's actually married.
We don't know anything.
I was fascinated to see who this character was. Like, is he going to be in a stereotypical movie, he would have been a bad guy. It's like, oh no,
evil husband.
Evil husband, and now I have to go save her from this. But no, they actually portray him as not. Yes, he has some issues, but he's definitely not a bad guy by any means.
Guy, really. Yeah. I mean, technically, he is.
Yeah. That was. I agree with you. That was a surprise. I thought he was going to start spying on her and see that this guy was beating her.
Yeah, abused. He's not taking care of his family. Like, what's up with this guy? And then, and that's another thing they kind of bring over too, because the first one had a lot of COVID. Stuff in it. Like, everybody's wearing masks. It was in the midst of COVID. 10 years later, which is interesting, we're still having a little bit of the COVID leftovers. Like, people's lives were still affected by COVID. That's one of the reasons he can't take care of his family. Yeah. His husband's restaurant fails because COVID, and so he doesn't know what to do. So that was another thing that was like, oh my God, it wasn't his fault.
Right. That was so interesting to me. And part of the way that Rakshit Shetty's character can kind of sneak around and stalk is that he wears a cloth mask.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
that he can be in certain situations and wear a cloth mask.
And no one thinks about it.
And no one blinks at that because other people are wearing masks. But yes, I thought it was really interesting that her life had been okay and her husband had been doing well, and then COVID hit and he can't recover his restaurant. He can't, it just was so devastating that it upended their life completely.
So sad.
And I did, it's not often that we deal with the effects of COVID, not just health wise, but economically, the way this film really showed how it devastated people's lives. So I thought that was really interesting.
Even his approach, to be honest, like his approach to sort of even stalk the husband in some ways, like sort of just like, be at the same bar, see what he's doing, what he's up to, like find out about his restaurant. I was like, man, his whole life is about basically her relationship and her, and I guess trying to see if she's okay. Because it's never hinted that he wants to take him out or anything like that. Or was there some moments where he wanted to take him out?
I think he was kind of like, he overhears from the little kid, which again, creepy that he approaches the little kid
in the playground. Like, dude, no.
But he kind of learns, oh, my parents can't afford a bike for my birthday because my dad stole all the money. And then he's like, okay, so, our mind is same as Rakshit Shetty's character is like, ooh, this guy's a bad guy and he probably has a mistress and blah, right? Like his mind is going, or he's a gambler or whatever. And then he finds out the guy just has crippling debt from the pandemic, doesn't have a mistress. It's not all of that at all. Yes, he's drinking and he's depressed, but it's because he's in this horrible situation and he can't see a way out. There's a crucial scene. Again, we're going to talk spoilers, but there's a crucial scene where Rakshit Shetty's character is about to poison the husband.
God, that was like,
yeah, correct. Yes.
And then in talking to him, and they're sitting in the restaurant, and he's hearing the stories, and he's like, no. Switches it, knocks over the glass, is like, even he's like, no, I can't take this step. It's not that this guy is evil. He just had, in the same way that he had horrible things happen to him and ended up in prison. This guy is innocent too, right? And life is beating him down.
But I mean, and then the other interesting part is with what they do with his friend, like Rakshit Shetty's friend, who has to sort of play this like Dubai foreign like character to be like, where are you getting money from? You got to act like you're from Dubai.
I know, so weird. Put on a better shirt. You have to look like you're wealthy.
You have to look like.
I mean, this is definitely not a comedy, but there's some moments when like
moments of absurdity.
He's gonna put it around his neck, and then he realizes, oh wait, I'm not meant to be that kind of person. Because I think that's what like auto rickshaw drivers do or something like that. It's a common thing.
Right.
Like, wait a second,
right.
So funny. I love that.
And I mean, all the ways that he's trying to help his ex-fiancée without her knowing that he's helping her.
It's just creepy if it was happening to you, because he's actually going into her house when she's not there, like creeping around in her house and fixing things. Or like the one thing I did really like that he did was an interesting subtle moments when he goes over and cuts holes in a billboard that keeps any sun from going in her window. And he just cuts a big hole in it. And he knew like how the angle, when she goes into her kitchen, it's like, what's this light? Like it was so, you could almost hear, like this light coming in.
That was an amazing
scene. That was so sweet.
Because we had no idea. We're like, okay, he's just cutting out this billboard so he has a better view.
Eye on her.
He can spy on her more. And then you realize when she comes in, and each room now of her small little apartment has sunlight. This dingy, like based, apartment finally has, and everything he does to make sure that they move to a better apartment, and then he subsidizes, and he purposely picks a place where she would be hearing music at a school, a school for blind kids. Oh my gosh. Like, You know, in one way, you're admiring everything he's doing. Like, you're very conflicted because
it is very.
You're like, this girl needs to be rescued in some of these ways, but dude, my dude.
Yes, like let her know. And also, I felt like he was doing a disservice to the girl he was with, who was a prostitute that he ends up befriending. Who I loved her too because she had no shame. She's like, that's what I am, whatever. You know, like I like that she was very pragmatic and she wasn't ashamed of it, and that was really refreshing. And he wasn't there to rescue her. Like she actually is more pulled together than he was.
Yes, definitely.
Right. I mean, because she's just like, I'm not getting emotionally attached to anybody because nobody's going to hurt me.
Yeah.
And then you see when she lets him in and how it's even more devastating for her.
Yeah,
I know. Sad.
There was some dialogue around her, like she wasn't with anybody because she gave somebody a piece of her heart before and it broke or something like that along those lines.
Yeah.
And you just don't want that to happen again. And unfortunately,
he was not the guy. And the thing is, he almost seemed like he wanted to move. Like he was like, we should get a place together. We should. And you're like, yay, he's moving on. He's gonna do his little bit to relieve his conscience, take care of the ex-girlfriend, and then he can move forward with her. But no,
what does he do? He moves back. He moves into the dingy apartment where his ex-girlfriend had been. Oh my god!
Exactly.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Oh, dude, that's like finding text on someone's phone. Come on, man. No. So
the other character was
that made you cringe.
Yeah, that one really was. But the other character, also the brother they brought back, which was also a great little throwback. Like they brought back because I didn't recognize him at first, but it's been so long that he's gone from being like a younger adult to being a fully grown adult. And I was like, who's this guy? I was like, oh my god, wait a second. It showed you, nothing shows you progression in time than a kid growing up. So you're like, oh wow, it's been that long. Like this guy's really grown up.
I know.
Yeah. But
right, and everyone is telling Rashid Shetty's character, move on. All of these characters, but then
we're saying it. Please
but
move
then
on.
Everybody is like, okay, you want to do this one thing to help her? Okay, we'll help you.
Do what you need to do to make yourself feel better, but then move on.
Okay, but then it escalates and it escalates and it escalates. And when we get to the revenge portion and the things that he does,
yeah. He learned a lot in prison, and he's using all the tools that he has to, show dominance and have, separate your conscience, because he's not a psychopath. He feels emotion very deeply. He just knows that these people ruined his life, ruined her life, killed all any future he feels like he could have had of happiness, any kind of happiness he could have. So he did what he needed to do.
Well, he did a little beyond what he needed.
He did, but he had a little bit of that revenge thing going on. So he pushed it a little hard. I would not feel sorry for any of these people, by the way.
Oh no, definitely not. Like they got away with a lot. they did. They really. I mean, what is it? There's like one scene when he goes to like the office and he tries to break in and he's standing outside and all the guy says is, take this watch, it's worth a lot. And that's all. It's like, oh my god, really? Like that this can't be enough of compensation. And the other scene that was like, I mean, he goes to the hospital with a child and he's sitting next to her.
That
was another really good scene.
Yeah, right. I mean, because the wealthy family that felt like, had made the deal with him to get their wealthy son out of a jam of a hit and run car accident, and they're like, he's trash, he's gone, we're not going to think about that anymore. And then he shows up. And he's like, no, you're not going to ignore me. But actually, he doesn't seek them out for revenge until he needs money to help his ex-fiancée, Priya. Like, but then when it reaches that point, like, okay, I got to do this. Ruthless.
He does.
Ruthless.
You feel like he'd been fantasizing about it his entire 10 years. And so while you were rooting for him in a way, I was reading that he wouldn't feel like he had to do it, even though I did want to see it. I was kind of like against my own worst impulses. Hope he would be able to go against it, but no, he had to do it. That was the two things he had to do: find the woman, get rid of the people. That was like the two things he planned to do when he got out.
I mean, okay, let's talk about it. I mean, the guy that kind of did all the machinations and then didn't care that he was stuck in prison.
Yep.
He ends up, so, our character, Manu is stuck in prison for 10 years in this horrible confining environment.
Mm-hmm.
So what does he do to that guy?
Oh my God.
He gets the wealthy family to just give him the check and then not care what happens to that guy. and he puts him in like an abandoned factory in a hole. Like,
right.
I mean, like, and we see time pass. Like the guy has grown his lengthy beard.
Yeah.
Like we don't even know how long this guy is kept with just occasional food and water. Oh my God. And then all the friends around Manu who are then aware that this has happened are horrified, but like don't even know what to do with Manu anymore. Like they don't even know what, like this guy is lost it. He's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, so it's like it's almost like we're a frog in boiling water. It's like we're like, oh, this Manu, he's so great. Look, he's so tragic. Oh. And then we get to a certain point in the second film where we're like, holy shit, what?
I know.
What?
And you knew it was a point of no return because by the time he was doing that, he was not the same guy from side A who she should be with. At that point, when he did that, he basically erased any chance he had at a future, any chance he had with her. And you don't want her to be with, you don't want anyone to be with him anymore after that.
We don't even want the nice prostitute with the heart of gold to be with him. We're like, no.
Well, look at what he gets her into. I mean, he ruins her. He almost got her killed. Like, oh my God.
Right. I mean, she leaves him, and then still the bad guy, like all of the bad, history catches up with her.
Yeah.
And then that's when we have our epic action.
It was pretty epic. It was epic because we felt emotion. Like by the time you get to that, you're feeling that disruptor. You feel all the good stripped away. You see the visceral, just the emotional toll violence takes. It's not just like, yay, violence is what we kind of want. Revenge. It was not fun revenge. It was like, oh God, he's ruined everything with this.
Yeah, it was the bully from the prison, played by Ramesh Indira, who was so evil. So evil.
So bad.
And here again is someone who won't let it go because they'd had a fight in the prison and he'd lost his hearing.
That's right.
And so once he spots that Manu is out and available for torture again, he's also cannot let anything go. Right. And so it's this clash of these two people.
The cycle of violence.
So Amit, was it everything that you were expecting it would be from the end of Side A, that kind of like a little revenge trailer at the end?
It definitely when it definitely at that part, the last 45 minutes or hour, whatever it was. And also we talked a lot about sort of how well this movie was sort of shot and produced. Like they really put a lot of effort in to make this movie look nice, especially during the action sequences as well. There's one of those scenes where I think it's just like the camera must be on a tripod or something like that. It's just completely stopped and you're just seeing inside a small little room and they're just fighting it out in like a red, there's like a red this background or something like that. The lighting is in red and you there's no quick cuts, no movement. It's just him just moving like across the screen. And I'm like,
so
wow,
well choreographed,
very well shot. This is extremely from a technical point of view, it's masterful what they've done. It definitely did. And I think also that I'm really glad that they gave a whole storyline to I guess a prostitute who's Surabi, I think the name of
Surabi, played by Chatra Achar, if I'm saying it correctly.
They gave her a complete storyline,
right?
Like from start to end. And you see that scene at the end where he's hiding the tapes, and that's like the thing where it's like, if she hears that, how's she gonna react? And we see that scene with her just burning everything, and his reaction. He says those words, something like "you will never replace her" or something like that. I'm like,
oh, it was so mean.
That's such a horrible thing to say to somebody. Like, why does she have to replace her for you?
You gave her a spot of hope, and then you're going to do this.
Yep.
After she told you. Yeah. She told you about how she doesn't want to be burnt, and you still broke her trust like that.
And he was basically just using her in a way. Like he was using her as a way to, like, in a way, kind of create a little bit of a foundation for him. But it didn't feel like he really any move he made was about still to further his interest in his old girlfriend.
It was sexual release, but and also he would be fantasizing that he was with his ex-girlfriend when he was with Sarabi, but also.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in some ways, like you said, I think in some ways he did want to move on and not be living in a hole and having that kind of home environment that he'd always dreamed of living with a woman. But he couldn't let it go. Could not let his past go. He could not truly move on. And oh my God. Yeah, that scene was so horrible. I just felt so bad for her.
Yeah.
And then when she has washed her hands of him, she's still trapped in the web of all of his
bullshit. I know, he
right?
puts a
Because then
target
the
on her
villain
back.
comes after her because she's been spotted as the new girl. Oh my God.
It was brutal. And, like you were saying, like, I feel like he believed he could move on, but never could. And he probably thought, I can fantasize about her for a while with this woman and then I'll be able to move on. And they just could move on. And then by having access to the girl, he kept reinvesting himself emotionally with the ex-girlfriend over and over again. It was just like, he just kept his own worst enemy. He was his own worst enemy the whole time. He got himself into a bad jam. He did something dishonest. He got out of prison. He started doing more dishonest. I mean, he lied to himself more than anyone in this movie.
Right.
It was so frustrating to watch because you feel like down deep there was a really cool person, really good, honest, honorable person in there, but it was all gone by the time.
Right. And I don't know the actor who played the new husband of Priya. Okay. Like he actually thought, this guy's my friend.
Yeah.
Right? This guy is my friend who helped me by finding an investor so I could have a fresh start.
Yeah.
And because essentially like the only way to stop the curse of the failed restaurant was to have a fresh new place that and just completely start over.
Yep.
And so Manu has done all this stuff to make that happen, but then they spot the guy that's supposed to be the Dubai investor just running around as a rickshaw driver, and they're like, "What the hell?
Investor?
What the hell?"
Yeah.
Right? And then it all falls apart. So it's like not only, here's another person that he betrayed, like someone who at the beginning of the film you're like, oh, obviously this guy's going to be evil. Obviously we're going to have no sympathy for this jerk.
Yep.
He married her and it made her life miserable. And here by that point we're just like, oh my God, his heart is broken too.
I know. Yeah. And you want the husband to work it out with the girl that he wants. So your allegiances keep shifting because our character has done so much damage to our faith in him that we can't believe it.
That's another thing with the friendship that they explored. It's like they got so close that he invited him to like the opening of like his new restaurant or something like that. And he says, he's like, obviously, I can't be there because
your wife might recognize me, but I can't tell you why.
Exactly.
Your wife, your kid, your everybody.
Everyone I've been stalking to get close to you, they'll all know who I am.
But exactly. So it's like
everybody.
Exactly. He just insinuated himself in such a sneaky way. And he could just go directly.
But, I mean, the ending action, essentially he does sacrifice himself for Sarabi. Like in some ways, he redeems himself for Sarabi because even though she had rejected him, when he hears she's in danger, he runs. He runs to rescue her. And so in some ways he redeems himself and he is willing to give the ultimate sacrifice. And Sarabi is witness to that. And again, we're spoilers. I mean, we see him die, then envision himself on the beach and whatever. And then one of our final scenes of the movie is Sarabi on the beach. And you see she has this medical textbook that she picks up.
Yeah.
And so the dream that she had told him, he's like, well, if these things hadn't happened to you and you didn't end up in this life as a prostitute, what was your dream? What did you want to do? And she's like, I wanted to be a doctor. And you can see that all the events that have happened have led her to be like, okay, I'm doing it.
Yep.
And so I love, as Amit, you said, we get this whole arc with her. And we don't just end with her chained in that room.
He rescued her. Yay.
Yeah. We don't end there. We get to see this moment of hope that she's moved on to a new life. Older, wiser, whatever, but I was like, thank you, director, for giving us that scene.
Thank you. And I like that he's the last one we see with him. Like they didn't even bring in the old girlfriend, the whole impetus for this entire epic journey. And I love where he's just like at the beach doing what he'd always fantasize about with the other girl. Now he's on the beach with her. And I just love the way he's turning, he's walking into the ocean, and you're just like, no. All of a sudden I'm like, no. And it's like, you mean after all of this, we have to have this as our ending? He has to die at the end?
Yeah.
I mean, I was just heartbroken all over the place.
Yeah. I was a little conflicted at that moment because I was like, oh, could you have just kept him alive? Could you have given us some reason to smile in this movie? Like like they really didn't hold back on making this movie as sad as you could, because I was like it kind of makes me sad that he never, like, it kind of tells like if there's a message out of this movie, like that obsessive nature of if you have that obsessive nature, it's not going to lead to anything good. You have to get yourself out of that, because he could not get himself out of that at all, and it led to his demise in the end. Which was really sort of sad, because I was hoping that at least, is he going to get closure? Is he going to move on? But I guess the past just haunts him too much as to what happened. It's a really sad story at the end if you just look at it that way. It's like he really couldn't get past whatever happened with him, and his love for his ex-girlfriend was so strong that it just couldn't be broken, which I guess is, again, it suits the whole narrative of the side A, beautiful but tragic.
Yes.
Thing.
I think he's basically saved everyone but himself. Like, by the end of it, he saved the new girlfriend, he saved the old girlfriend, he saved the husband of the old girl. Like, he basically made everyone else's life better, but he had to sacrifice his own life and self for that. And that's what, in a way, it was a beautiful ending. At the same time, I was kind of rooting they'd give us some relief because this guy has had nothing.
I guess our only relief is that Priya is singing again.
That's right.
And that his goal of pulling her out of her darkness.
Yeah,
he did win that battle, and that Sarabi is moving on with her life in a much more positive way. But oh my God, yeah.
I mean, what else was going to happen to him? He was going to go back to jail. I mean, or be killed by this cycle of revenge and violence that he keeps perpetuating throughout. So in a way, him dying at the end and saving the new girlfriend is sort of what he was meant to do in a weird way. Like, that was his.
Because by the end of the film, he still had the guy in the hole. Like, he ran from there, but the guy was still in the hole. If he ever let him out, like you say, what was going to happen then? Like, I mean, seriously.
No, he was done. I mean, by the time he started that, you knew his story was over, because he can't get it. I did love the scene, though, as part of that quiet, weird straddling of poetic and disturbing at the same time, where he's sitting on top of this container that the guy is in. So he's just sort of sitting in the chair, just hanging out. I don't even know if he was smoking, but you hear the guy like, let me out. You're just like, and he's just sitting there in the chair, like, I just thought that was beautiful, because how long did he sit in prison, hearing screaming all day long? Just sitting there doing nothing but thinking about how to get revenge when he gets out.
Yes.
So it was a beautiful, I like that they didn't have, the happy ending would have been what I wanted, but they gave me what I needed, which was, this is this character's whole story arc, and you got what he needed to get. So there we are. Not what you want to get.
I mean, again, Amit Rao, like, wow. Okay. Wow. The scope of your imagination to do a project this big. This is kind of like the cinema. Kind of the cinema is doing some really amazing things.
They're really blowing me away. Yeah.
I mean, we get the huge action epics like a KGF, and then we get a story like this. Which is really really different. Like you said, I'm not getting happy endings tied with a bow. I don't know. Like, it just, and that we haven't even talked about, like, the soundtrack is amazing. Like,
the soundtrack was so good.
The cinematography was amazing. This was really so different, and it's just really amazing. Like, I'm really in awe of the acting in this, and I'm in awe of the imagination to say, we're going to do a 5-hour movie.
Why not? When Tarantino did it,
we're going to release it a few months apart.
But it was like before and during the fight to stay out of jail, and then being stuck in jail makes sense for the first. I mean, it did feel like a contained story. Then it was like post prison, so we had before prison, during prison, and we had post. So the stories are neatly divided, so you don't have to feel like, oh my God, how am I gonna? It's gonna be weird. That's gonna be cut in half. No, it feels it's abrupt, but you still feel like, oh, okay, this is how it's gonna end. You just want the revenge part earlier. That's all.
Yes. Correct. And another thing, I think, with the whole industry that we talked about, like, it's interesting because even if you look on like the Wikipedia pages, there's not much information about a lot of these actors. Like, I don't know how experienced, because when I was watching it with my wife, she was sort of mentioned that she had seen a lot of them in sort of TV shows, for instance. So like serials, like on TV, like just like mainstream TV, in like Karnataka and things like that. So it's not like they're pulling in actors from other industries to come in and with more experience and things like that, or they're really keeping it local to what they have and things like that. So aside from Rakshit Shetty, who's a big name, and Achyut Kumar, I recognize, who's done quite a bit. Like, there wasn't too many faces that I recognized, but yet everybody was just great. Like, I mean, the guy who played the friend, I mean, he was maybe one of my favorite characters in
It
the
was
movie.
so good.
And I don't know how, like, I'm sure he's got a lot of experience as an actor, but to pull this kind of role off with so many parts which have, somewhat inexperienced in that way, I guess. But it just shows you this industry is actually, as you were saying, has a lot to offer. And it seems like it's a pretty close unit as well, with a lot of experienced actors that can come in and, really play a role which is above what people would think in some ways, just because they haven't been seen in, like, a big, Telugu or Tamil movie or something like that, doesn't mean that they can't, do this kind of role. They should be, honestly, propelling themselves more in the industry. I feel like, because they have the chops.
Yeah, maybe we're seeing star making, this is their next step in the ladder. This movie's getting a lot of promotion and good faith. I mean, Part 1 was my favorite Kannada film of last year. So I'm fully on board with this movie. So I hope all these actors find great success because they deserve it.
The other thing is, and maybe I'm just extrapolating and I don't know the full backstory of how this movie came together, but the fact that Rakshit Shetty is a producer of this film, I have to give kudos to him. I always say I love when a big star uses his stardom for good.
Yeah.
And especially in a way like this, to get an interesting, different story made. I mean, let's be real. Like, if it was a no-name actor, it would not have gotten the eyeballs to watch this film because Rakshit Shetty's name is on it. I mean, he was excellent in it. I'm not taking anything away at all.
Nope.
I can't imagine really anybody else doing this role the way that all that he gave to us in it. But I'm just saying, kudos to him for getting this film made, for producing this film. And I mean, because he's done zany, he's done more mainstream kind of films. And for doing an offbeat story like this and bring it to us on the big screen and not just, this is a small streaming original miniseries somewhere or whatever, right? I mean, he got a lot of attention. People knew that this film existed and were anxious to see it because of his name being involved with it. So kudos to him for that.
I love that too. It's awesome. So just blown away. Great film.
We can't recommend it enough. Like, have the box of Kleenex handy. Just telling you, for both side A and side B.
Be ready.
Be ready. Be ready.
Be ready.
That's right.
Definitely, no. I think both movies are really, really good movies. And they definitely show us it's a fresh take on a revenge thriller and a prison movie in the first one, if you want to put it, and even the second part. It doesn't really rely on too many tropes. So you really, when you watch this movie, you really feel like you watch something that's fresh and original, and that's a huge statement to make, considering they're in a genre that's been done a million times. They did something that I haven't seen too much of before, and they said true to their vision. They said true to what they wanted. Yep, it's a fantastic movie, and it's on Amazon Prime. I hope this movie did well, like commercially. Like, I'm not sure about those numbers in terms of like how much money it made.
I mean, I don't really know what the size of the Canada film audience is. I mean, I know it did play in theaters in the US. I wasn't able to catch it, but I mean, it again, Rakshit Shetty's name led to it having possibly a wider distribution than most some Canada films do. I mean, it's not every Canada film that plays in the US, for instance. So I think this is a great place to end, because we're basically all saying this is fantastic. This is a spoiler discussion. I'm sure, hopefully you've already watched the film by now. But encourage other people to seek it out, because it's definitely something that is unique and special. And yes, it's an investment of time, because it's 2.5 hour films, but well worth it. So, all right. Thanks so much, Kathy and Amit, for this wonderful discussion of this film. You can find Kathy on Cinema on the Podcast. Definitely watch our first part of the discussion there if you haven't already. And then Amit is on D54, where we talk all things Malayalam cinema when we join him there. So, and you know where you can find me. Please do hit the bell here if you subscribe, so that you'll never miss another trailer action with us.
That's right.
You.